In the previous video, we looked at setting up the bid file parameters. After the bid file is set up, you want to set up the contents of the three views that are in PrimeBid. Again, the three views are the matrices view, sections view, and summary view. In this video, we're going to set up first the summary view. Clicking on the summary view button on the toolbar will open the summary view and display its contents. This is a single page, top page of the bid, or a closing page, where we have a summary of all the other information contained in the other views. In the top left-hand corner of this view, we see a category cost summary for labor, materials, subcontractor, equipment, and other cost categories. On the right-hand side, we see a division summary. This division summary for this bid is set up into the 16 division system. If this bid was set up on the 48 division system, we would see that style of summary displaying here on the right hand side. Then in the summary view, we see the colorized items, which are the different add-ons that can be set up in the summary view. There's three groups of add-ons that can be added. One is the blue group, or the indirect costs, the green group, or the markups, and the orange group, which is insurance or bonding costs. These three groups have specialized setup screens, and they can be edited directly on the face of the summary view. Unlike the summaries for categories and divisions, which are displayed as the actual summaries and are not editable on this view. If the state sales tax for this job was 8.25%, I could type that in. The state sales tax amount will dynamically recalculate, and the total bid automatically recalculates. Every time there's a new winning bid or a change on the sections view, there is a dynamic change to the total bid amount in PrimeBid. To edit these views, I can go in and use the toolbar, and there are three editing buttons for editing the indirect costs, editing the bid markups, or editing the bond calculations. By clicking on the Edit Indirect Cost button, I'll bring up the editing windows that show me that there are two indirect cost add-ons on the summary view, and I'm looking at one of two, the builder's risk insurance, which is set up as a lump sum for a deductible amount calculated on all the cost categories. And then if I look at the next one that is set up, it's for state sales tax based on a percentage at 8.25%, only calculating on the materials cost category. You can add as many indirect costs to this bid file as you deem necessary. They could be things like allowances, contingency factors, cut and adds for electrical or mechanical or specific cut and add numbers, and of course they can be edited directly on the face of the summary view and operated during the bid closing process. The second group of add-ons are the markups. In this case, there's one markup on this job for overhead and profit. I can access the editing window by clicking on that row for that markup and then double-clicking to bring up the editing window. You see the name, the calculation type based on a percentage at 6%, calculated on all of the cost categories. I could have a markup for just labor at 15%, materials, equipment, and other at 8%, and subcontractor at 2%, making three of these with different values that would give me a discrete composite rate of overhead and profit for this job. In this case, we just have one, and you'll notice that that markup has got this checkbox for apply the markup to total bid checked, which means that it's calculated on itself, and the bonding and insurance costs, it's actually calculating a true 6% on the gross bid amount. I'm going to close this window and take a look at the bonding and insurance calculations. This particular performance bond is calculated on a step rate calculation. By clicking on it and double clicking, I'll see a grid that shows me the step rate calculations. In this case, from $1 to the first $100,000 in the bid will be set at 1.5%. From $100,001 to $500,000 will be calculated at 0.7%, and each step will be in the range between the last step and this step with that calculation percentage. So the bond will be calculating correctly. Also, we can apply the cost of the bond to itself, to other bonds, and to sales tax that would be in the system, meaning that this bond will be calculated on the total bid amount. Also, we can come in and say, let's increase the bond amount by 1% for each month the job duration exceeds 1 year or 12 months. We did set up the job duration on this particular file at 14 months. So it's going to have a 2% premium added to the total bond amount based on this calculation method. I'm going to accept those changes and close. The performance bond will recalculate and change the total bid. I also have the ability to change or put in a final cut and add. If I want to drop this bid by $50,000, I could type in a negative $50,000, which will then change the total bid amount. If I decided that I wanted to bid the job at $6,199,000, I could type that amount in, and that will adjust the final cut and add amount accordingly. There are other elements to closing out a bid that will be processed in other videos. This is a quick review of how to set up the summary view. The next video that we'll be working on will be for setting up the sections and costs for the categories in the sections view